And picture this. It's midday. The sun is directly above you, and there's no shade for miles. Sweat is running down your back before you've even moved a muscle. Now take away your air conditioner. Take away your fan. Take away your fridge full of cold water. No electricity exists yet, anywhere on Earth. This is the world your ancestors lived in, every single summer, for thousands of years, and somehow, they didn't just survive it, they figured out how to beat it. Long before thermostats and box fans, entire civilizations engineered ways to stay cool that were so clever. Some of them are still being copied by architects today. From towering clay structures that pulled wind out of the sky, to underground cities carved deep into cool rock, ancient builders treated the heat not as something to endure, but as a problem to solve with pure ingenuity. Comment below and tell us where you're watching this from. Because wherever you are, someone who lived there centuries ago solved this exact same problem, with nothing but mud, wind, and sheer human ingenuity. Here's something most people never think about. Heat wasn't just uncomfortable for ancient humans. It was one of the deadliest forces they faced, quietly killing more people across history than most wars ever did. The human body can only handle so much. Once your core temperature climbs too high, your organs start shutting down. No hospitals existed to treat heat stroke. No cold IV drips, no emergency rooms, nothing. In regions like Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, and the deserts of North Africa, summer temperatures could soar past 45 degrees Celsius. That's well over 110 Fahrenheit, day after day, for months at a time, with no relief in sight once the sun rose each morning. So this wasn't a lifestyle choice. Beating the heat was survival, plain and simple. Communities that couldn't manage it didn't last. Entire settlements were abandoned because the heat made farming, sleeping, even walking outside nearly impossible during certain hours. Crops failed. Water sources dried up. Livestock collapsed in the fields. Ancient humans had a brutal choice: adapt or die out. And adapt they did, in ways that still stun engineers today. Historians studying ancient burial records have even found seasonal patterns. More deaths recorded in the peak summer months than at any other time of year, especially among the very young and the very old. This wasn't a minor inconvenience tucked into daily life. It shaped where cities were built, when crops were planted, and how entire societies organized themselves around the rhythm of the sun. Let's start in ancient Persia, modern-day Iran, around 1300 BCE. Here, builders invented something called the badgir, or windcatcher. Picture a tall tower rising above a home, open on one or more sides. As wind blew across the top, it funneled down through the tower into the living space below, creating a constant natural breeze without a single moving part, without a battery, and without a drop of fuel. But the Persians didn't stop there. Some windcatchers worked with underground water channels called qanats. Hot air pulled down through the tower would pass over the cool water below, dropping the temperature even further before spreading through the house. This was, in essence, natural air conditioning, built entirely from clay, wind, and clever geometry over 3,000 years before electricity existed. No wires, no motors, no fuel to burn, just a careful understanding of how air moves and how water cools it along the way. Archaeologists studying the city of Yazd have found windcatchers still standing after centuries, some of them still functional today, quietly cooling homes exactly the way they did for the families who first built them. That's not a lucky coincidence. That's brilliant design, tested by time itself. If you're enjoying learning how our ancestors outsmarted nature without a single machine, hit subscribe now, because we're about to look at an even stranger invention: how one desert civilization made ice, in the middle of summer, with zero refrigeration. This next one sounds almost impossible. In ancient Persia, engineers built massive dome-shaped structures called yakhchals, essentially towering clay refrigerators. Some stood over 60 feet tall, visible for miles across the flat desert landscape. Here's how they worked. During cold winter nights, workers would channel water into shallow pools near the base of the structure. The desert night air, combined with the yakhchals' thick, insulated walls, allowed the water to freeze, even in a region famous for scorching heat. The ice would then be stored underground inside the dome, insulated so well it could last through the brutal summer months, sometimes surviving all the way into late summer without fully melting. Think about that for a second. People in the middle of the desert, thousands of years before electricity, were enjoying ice in July. This wasn't just about comfort. Preserved ice meant food could be kept longer, medicine could be stored safely, and diseases linked to spoiled food dropped significantly. Fruit could be chilled. Drinks could be served cold on the hottest day of the year. One clever piece of architecture quietly saved lives, generation after generation. Meanwhile, in ancient India, communities tackled heat from a completely different angle, going down instead of up. Elaborate stepwells, some more than 100 feet deep, were carved into the earth, giving people access to cool water and cooler air, far below the blistering surface temperature above. These weren't just wells. Some, like the famous Chand Baori in Rajasthan, functioned as gathering spaces, temples, and cooling refuges all in one, with intricate carved steps descending in symmetrical patterns toward the water below. Women would gather there to collect water and escape the heat together. Travelers would rest in the shaded lower levels before continuing their journeys. Temperatures underground could be noticeably lower than the surface, sometimes by 10 degrees or more, simply because the Earth itself acted as natural insulation across the world. From the underground cities of Cappadocia in Turkey to the earth-sheltered homes of the American Southwest, ancient builders understood something modern construction often forgets. The ground beneath our feet is one of the best natural air conditioners on Earth, and it doesn't need a single watt of power to work. Some stepwells were so elaborate they took generations to complete, with multiple stories of carved balconies and rest platforms lining the descent. Entire festivals were held there during the hottest months, turning a practical water source into the social heart of the community. It wasn't just engineering. It was a way of life built entirely around outsmarting the sun. Now here's a myth that needs busting. A lot of people assume ancient humans simply had tougher bodies, that they were somehow biologically built to handle extreme heat better than we are today. That's not true. Human biology hasn't meaningfully changed in thousands of years. Ancient people got heat stroke. They suffered from dehydration. Their bodies responded to extreme temperatures exactly the way ours do. The difference wasn't their biology. It was their behavior and their architecture. They restructured entire daily schedules around the sun, working before dawn and after dusk, resting through the hottest hours in the shade or underground. They built homes with thick walls made from mud brick or stone, materials that absorb heat slowly during the day and release it slowly at night, keeping interiors far more stable than a modern thin-walled house would be. Small windows, high ceilings, and courtyards with fountains or shaded trees all worked together to trap cool air and push hot air out. They wore loose, breathable clothing designed to trap air and encourage sweat evaporation, not to look fashionable, but to survive. In other words, ancient humans didn't out-tough the heat. They outthought it, one design choice at a time. But let's be honest with you here, because not every solution was perfect, and heat still killed people. Historical records and archaeological evidence from ancient Rome, Egypt, and Mesopotamia all point to seasonal spikes in death during extreme heat waves, especially among the elderly, infants, and outdoor laborers who had no choice but to work regardless of temperature. Farmers, soldiers, and builders often had no access to shade for hours at a stretch. Windcatchers and stepwells helped enormously, but they weren't available to everyone. Wealthier families often had access to better-cooled homes, while poorer communities baked in cramped, poorly ventilated housing with little relief. This is an important reminder. Ancient engineering was remarkable, but it wasn't magic. It reduced suffering, it saved countless lives, but it didn't eliminate the danger completely. Heat remained one of the most persistent threats to ancient life, right alongside famine and disease, a quiet danger that never fully went away. It's a humbling truth. For every windcatcher that cooled a wealthy merchant's home, there was likely a family nearby with no such luxury, simply enduring the season as best they could, relying on shade, cloth soaked in water, and sheer resilience to make it through. Here's the part that might genuinely surprise you. Modern architects and engineers haven't moved past these ancient techniques. They've gone back to them, studying them more closely than ever before. Buildings today, from eco-friendly homes in Arizona to skyscrapers in the Middle East, are being designed using passive cooling principles lifted almost directly from Persian windcatchers and thick-walled ancient architecture. One well-known example, the East Gate Center in Zimbabwe, was inspired by the self-regulating ventilation systems found in termite mounds and ancient earth-sheltered buildings, and it uses roughly 90% less energy for cooling than a comparable conventional building. Think about that. In an age of smart thermostats, satellite technology, and machine-controlled climate systems, some of our most efficient cooling solutions are still borrowed from ideas that are literally thousands of years old, quietly proven long before any of us were born. Engineers didn't reinvent the wheel. They simply rediscovered what ancient builders already knew. Ancient humans weren't primitive. They were pioneers, and in some ways, we're still catching up to them. Researchers today are even studying ancient Egyptian and Roman ventilation shafts, Chinese courtyard designs, and Native American adobe structures for the same reason. These systems worked without burning a single unit of fossil fuel, and in a world worried about energy use, that matters more now than ever before. So, picture that same scene from the beginning. Midday sun, no shade, no fan, no fridge. Except now, imagine you're not helpless. You're standing beneath a windcatcher funneling cool air into your home. Somewhere nearby, a block of ice sits buried underground, saved from last winter's frost. Down a flight of carved stone steps, cool water waits in the shade, exactly where your ancestors knew it would be. That's the real story here. Ancient humans weren't just surviving the heat. They were quietly mastering it, one clever idea at a time, using nothing but clay, wind, water, and the ground beneath their feet. No electricity, no fans. Just patience, observation, and centuries of trial and error passed down through generations. So next time your AC kicks on during a heat wave, remember, you're not using a modern invention. You're using an idea our ancestors perfected long before electricity ever existed. Every windcatcher, every underground stepwell, every buried block of desert ice was a message passed down through time. Humans don't just survive hardship. They study it, they experiment with it, and eventually, they turn it into something close to mastery. That instinct didn't disappear with the invention of electricity. It's the same instinct behind every modern engineer trying to build a cooler, greener, smarter world today. If this blew your mind, hit subscribe and let us know in the comments. Which ancient cooling trick surprised you the most?